In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, who came to us in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, to whom all praise is due forever. I bear witness that the most honorable Elijah Muhammad is the exalted and living Christ, now at the right hand of the Savior as Mahdi. And I bear witness that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is the Messiah in our midst in this day of judgment in which we now live. It is in their names I greet my family with the greeting words of peace and paradise once again of Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, sir.
Wa alaikum salam, sir.
It's good to see everyone. Even though I don't see you, I see your spirit. Praise be to Allah. There's a lot of information I think to cover tonight. So as always, we'll open up. If there's any questions, thoughts, comments, suggestions or corrections that we can cover. If not, we'll go ahead and get started. So I'll go ahead and open up the floor. Anything at all before we get started? All right. Let us begin. Let's see, let me find my, is this it? There it is. Okay, does everyone see my screen? Yes, no?
Yes, sir, I do.
Yes, sir. I can see it.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
so that's, so to kind of, I'm gonna do a brief review of some of the information we covered last week. But just to give a quick synopsis, we're looking at the book of Jonah and the events that take place in that book as an allegory or like a parable, giving us an illustration of the events that take place within the mind. So we're looking at the story of Jonah from an internal standpoint in a symbolic way. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'll do a quick review of the first chapter, which was kind of like an illustration of going down the tone scale. And then chapter 2, even though we're only going to get to the probably first 3 chapters, there was so much information that came to the surface just based on these 3 chapters and the relationship between the Holy Quran, the teachings, and Dianetics, that I just said I'll limit it to just these 2 or 3 chapters. I mean 2 or 3 verses, and then we will go ahead and we'll do the rest at another time. We're going to look at what we know as Leviathan, and we're going to look at it from the perspective of it being a symbolic representation of what an engram is. So we're going to deal with a lot of symbolism today. And then one of the main relationships that we're going to look at was what's called the allied computation. Key points. This is from last week. In the first chapter of Jonah, the first thing that Jonah did was he ran from God. And we had stated that if God represents a place of peace, then when anyone runs from God, what do they run into? Or what are they running away from? Anyone?
Is it
Running away from their assignment.
They're running away from their assignment. So running from God is running from your assignment. And when you run from God, then you run into the fire, basically. But the fire as Allah says in the Holy Quran, the fire is meant to destroy the disbeliever, but the fire is used to purify the believer. So even when we run from God, if we're still striving to be a believer, that even when we run from God, we run into situations that will actually purify us and make us better. Then we were talking about how the verses talked about how Jonah, it says Jonah went down to Joppa. And we said that, well, Joppa, when you define Joppa, Joppa represents, when you clear it, the word Joppa means beautiful. And going down represented going down the tone scale. So Jonah was running from God, but he was running after the things of this world. Then he traveled to a city called Tarshish. Now, Tarshish was a city that was renowned for being a refinery city. And refinery is a place where they take metal, they melt it down to remove the imperfections. Is that correct? The impurities. So when we travel down the tone scale, we go into the fire. And then when we're in the fire, that fire actually will purify us of the impurities that are in our character. Then it talked about a great wind and a mighty tempest that God sent after Jonah. Those are the trials and tribulations that we have to endure because we're running from God. And then from a Dianetic standpoint, where it says that Jonah was asleep in the boat. In Dianetics, asleep is talking about what's called attenuation, meaning when your analytical mind shuts off. And when your analytical mind shuts off, that's when the reactive mind turns on. Then he was thrown overboard. How many of us remember any time in life when we stepped away from God and we went overboard in doing things that we had no business doing? Has anyone ever experienced that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we go overboard, or another way of saying is we go off the deep end.
Mm-hmm.
So so being swallowed by a fish, sometimes we go fishing for things that we shouldn't have gone after. And when we went fishing after certain things, that which we fished after, did that not actually swallow us?
Yes.
Okay, so we went chasing certain things, or we went chasing certain people or situations, and then we begin to be consumed by those situations. And then it says that Jonah was swallowed by a great fish. And then what we did was we referred to the sea as the reactive mind, and we referred to the great fish the same way we would look at what's called an engram. And we're going to kind of get deeper into that tonight. So the main idea, as we're going to continue to review, the main idea is the parables, the allegories, and similes provided by the Bible, as well as the Holy Quran, are symbolic representations that illustrate in symbolic form truths or generalizations about human existence and the different states of mind. In other words, those of us who either grew up in the church or have family that are in the church, 9 times out of 10, we know many of the stories from the Bible, correct?
Yes.
But how many times were we able to take those stories from the Bible and actually use them to better our condition, to better understand ourselves, and to actually be able to apply them to solve some of our problems? Have we ever been able to do that?
Not really.
Not really. Okay. So we know the stories, but the stories haven't really helped us because no one showed us how we can apply them. So tonight, we're going to make a couple of verses real. In other words, we're going to go back down our own time track, and I'm quite sure you may see things from your past that may come back to the surface as we're going through these stories. And then hopefully we can overcome certain things once they come to the surface. So we're going to do a comparative study. We're going to analyze Jonah of the Bible in conjunction with Jonah of the Holy Quran. So we're going to look at Jonah from 2 different perspectives, Bible and Holy Quran. Then we're going to find the ARC, or the agreement between the Bible, the Holy Quran, and the allegorical representations of aberration. We're going to then use these scriptures as a tool to find ourselves in the fish that may have swallowed us. Now, can anyone think over in the past something that consumed us that we had to struggle to get away from?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are there any of us that are still struggling with something that we're still struggling with to overcome?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Really, it's probably everyone in the Zoom meeting, unless we're holy. So I'm quite sure we're all working through something. And then we want to identify the path that leads out of the fish's belly. So all of us are Jonah on various levels. We've all been in contact with certain things. And on varying degrees, we're still working on getting ourselves detached from this fish that swallowed us. The study material, basically, we're gonna cover a couple of ayats in the Holy Quran from Surah 37, and we're gonna look at the book of Jonah from the Bible, and some the information that we covered tonight is in Dianetics book 3, chapter 7, called Emotion and Life Force. So last week we ended with chapter 1, but we ended on this verse right here. This verse says, "Now the Lord had prepared a great fish to swallow up Jonah. And Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights." And are we all familiar with this from the Bible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Holy Quran says it a little different. It says, "So the fish took him into its mouth while he was blamable. But had he not been of those who glorify us, he would have tarried in its belly till the day when they are raised." Two key verses, two different books, but there's much that corresponds to one another just in these two chapters. And that's one of the things we're going to cover tonight. So we know Leviathan is that great monster that lives beneath the surface, correct?
Yes.
Okay. How many of us have a Leviathan that we have to wrestle with every day?
Every day.
Every day, right? We all have something we battle with that's beneath the surface. Some of us battle over sleep to get up to make prayer. Some of us are battling with dietary law. You know, some of us are battling with the loss of friends and family. Varying degrees, we all have something that we're wrestling with. So what we're saying is, in this example, the sea itself could be an allegory for the reactive mind, and the fish, Leviathan, could be the engram. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Because beneath the surface of our thinking, we have these engrams, and it's from these engrams that causes us the problems that we're encountering, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So being swallowed by the fish, which is Leviathan, could represent metaphorically being stuck on the time track or being interbulated. And interbulation is something we covered last week. Is there anyone here that does not know what interbulation is?
Brother, could you give a refresher?
Of course. The word interbulated actually comes about in the book Science of Survival. I'm going to give you the Dianetic explanation, and I'm going to give you an explanation from the minister, so you can see how so we can kind of understand it in our language, which is what the minister wanted us to do, marry the supreme wisdom with the supreme tech. I'm going to give you the Dianetic explanation, but then I'm going to give you an explanation straight from the minister so we can see how it's connected.
Okay.
Okay, so first of all, the word interbulation comes from the word turbulate, which means when you take water and you whip it in a circular motion. Y'all with me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, remember when the Most High Elijah Muhammad taught about Leviathan that lives under the surface, and how you could whip the water in a circular motion. And he mentioned it with regards to submarines, and you could bring the submarines to the surface.
Right. Yes.
Okay, so when you whip the water in a circular motion, that's called the turbulence. Okay. L. Ron Hubbard uses interbulated on a mental level. From the Dianetic standpoint, these are called ARC locks. Okay, and an ARC lock is a type of lock, and the lock is a period of mental anguish, which results when affinity, reality, or communication is forced upon the individual by the environment, when he doesn't want it, when it is not rationally necessary, or where one or more of these is inhibited or denied to the individual by others in the environment. I'll give you an example. I hear some background noise. Can you remember a time when there was something in your childhood that you wanted that was kept from you? You weren't allowed to have it?
Yes.
Okay. So whatever that was that you were not allowed to have, on one level, that could be considered an ARC lock. Or you have what's called inhibited ARC, and you have what's called enforced ARC. Enforced ARC is when someone forced something on us that we didn't want. Inhibited ARC is when someone kept us from doing something that we wanted to do. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And I don't know why this just popped in my head, but some of y'all might remember this. Remember Eddie Murphy did, was it Delirious back in the early 80s? And he was talking about Aunt Bunny. Remember Aunt Bunny, who had the mustache?
Yes, sir.
And they said, go ahead and give your Aunt Bunny a kiss. And he didn't want to do it because Aunt Bunny had a mustache. That would
Yeah,
be
because of the mustache, right?
right. Okay, that'd be enforced ARC. So you might have a mustache engram after that. Okay, so that's just an example. I don't know how my mind shot back to Aunt Bunny, but that's just how the file clerk works. So when you talk about interpolated thetan, you're talking about in theta when you're talking about thought, or you're talking about the life force. And when you have an interpolated theta, the turbulated thetan, it's when you ever experience, you hear a song and then you can't get that song out of it, even though you don't like the song, you can't get the song out of your head.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's kind of an example of like an interpolated thought. Okay. On another level, it refers to communications, which based on lies and confusions are slanderous, choppy, or destructive in an attempt to overwhelm or suppress a person or a group. Example, remember when Minister Farrakhan spoke to us about when he was in school? I think did he want to be a doctor or a lawyer? Do we remember? Did he?
Oh, yes, a doctor.
He wanted to be a doctor. It was Malcolm that wanted to be the lawyer then.
Right.
I got those two mixed up. Okay. He wanted to be a doctor. And what did his teacher say to him?
My people wouldn't go to you because, well, we just wouldn't go to you. And your people won't go to you because they don't trust you.
Right. But you play the violin so well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that would be considered an inhibited ARC, inhibited affinity, inhibited reality, inhibited communication. So from the outside, you have individuals that provide communication that are based on lies and confusion in an attempt to overwhelm or suppress a person or a group. So our whole lives in this Western model of things, we've had to encounter information through the school system that was designed. It was purposely designed to suppress us. Okay. So the educational system in North America is designed to interbulate the thetan or suppress the original black man and black woman. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. In the Holy Quran, this same concept is found in what's called the whispering devil, which in Dianetics is called the demon circuit. It's the voice on the inside that speaks to us from within our own mind in an attempt to overwhelm or to suppress us as an individual. How many times have we had a great idea and we suppressed our own idea, or we gave up on our own idea based on something we told ourselves?
Yes, sir.
We might have said, I don't believe I can do it. I don't think it's going to work. No one's going to want to buy it or whatever. But we've all had something in our own mind that caused us to give up on great ideas and accomplishing great goals, correct? Okay. That means we're all interbulated. So in the King James Version, the same concept is found when Jesus was tempted in the wilderness. The difference is when Jesus was tempted in the wilderness, Jesus overcame it. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How many of us are familiar with how that story of Jesus applies to being interbulated, or how that could be seen as something that we all go through? Has anyone seen that before?
Not until just now.
Okay. Because when you look at what happened with Jesus, the first thing that happened with Jesus was he was in the wilderness and he was tempted of Satan. Satan said, turn these stones to bread. And then Jesus says, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeded out the mouth of God, correct?
Right.
Okay. But when you look at the symbolism, turn the stone to bread. Now, the way the lesson that I got from this is how I applied it just in my own personal life is when you turn stones to bread, you can't eat stone, correct?
Right.
And you shouldn't eat stone. So turning stone to bread means taking something that you can't eat or something you shouldn't eat and justify eating it. Does that make sense? Okay. So the first step towards sin is it has to be what? It has to be justified in our own mind, correct?
Right.
Okay. So in Dianetics, they call it justified thought. In Islam, the minister gave us what's called deceptive intelligence, correct?
Right.
Okay. So every time we sin first starts with we have to first justify it in our mind. Well, you know, I haven't had that in so long. You know, if I just do it one time, you know, it's not going to hurt. I won't do it again, whatever. I haven't done it in a while. So if we have to justify the thought. The second thing that happened to Jesus was Satan said, cast yourself off the temple, lest the angels will catch you before your feet dash against the stones, correct? Okay. So now you don't have just one stone, you have a whole bunch of stones. And to me, that was like, okay, now place yourself in an environment and then place yourself in an environment and God will save you. And sometimes we said we might have justified going to certain places and we said, well, you know, God's going to protect me. I'll go, but nothing's going to happen. Have we ever said that?
Yes, sir.
So in other words, the first thing is we have to justify the thought in our mind. But in order for that sin to take place, don't we have to go to a specific location? So the sin has to germinate in a place. We have to go somewhere to commit a particular sin. And it might not have to be even a sin. It could be just something that we know we ain't supposed to do. Okay. And then the final stage was Satan said, Satan took him up to the top of a mountain and showed him the whole world and said, if you bow down to me, I'll give you everything you see. So first, the sin has to come to mind. You have to justify it. Second thing is you have to go to a location where the sin can be manifested. But even then, finally, we have to give in and commit the sin, correct?
Mhm.
But in this last case, Satan said, turn the stone to bread. He said, man shall not live by bread alone. Second thing, Satan said, cast yourself off the temple. Jesus says, thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God, correct?
Mhm.
And then Satan said, bow to me and I'll give you everything. And he said, what? Get thee behind me, correct?
Right.
And the minister has told us, resist the devil and he will flee. So I always looked at that story as there's 3 steps before sin is manifested. And if we can catch it at any one of those stages, then we can keep ourselves from committing sin or keep ourselves from going against what we've been taught. Restrictive law, the dietary law, whatever it is. We got to catch it in one of those 3, and then we can still kind of keep ourselves from going into it. And also, if you look at the story of Legion, are we all familiar with the story of Legion in the Bible?
No.
When he said we are many.
Right. It said Jesus found a man who was at the base of the mountains cutting himself with stones. He was living in the tombs. And basically, the man was crazy as hell. And Jesus was speaking to him. He said, what is your name? He said, my name is Legion because we are many. And Jesus pulled the demons out of him and put the demons into the swine. And it said, and the swine ran off a cliff and killed themselves. And in the latter part of that same chapter is the book of Mark, chapter 5. It said that when the people saw Legion, they were amazed. I'm paraphrasing it. They saw Legion at the right hand of Jesus in a new garment in his right mind.
Mhm.
So I always looked at that as Jesus, he did some real good auditing on Legion. So theta, again, this is dealing with interpolation. Theta has been confused and chaotically mixed with the material universe, and which will lie in this confusion until death or some other process disinterbulates it. So when you look at chaotically mixed, the thought that came to my mind was mixed feelings and controversy, study guide number 1. So when you have mixed feelings and then you have a controversy, wouldn't those 2 things get together produce an aberration or a restimulation?
Mhm. Yes, sir.
Okay. So when you look at, it says here, when it says, will lie in this confusion until death or some other process disinterbulates it, it goes back to what we just read in the Holy Quran, where it says, he would have tarried in his belly to the day when they are raised. So now the question is, what does the word raised mean in Arabic? And has that time period already started?
Mhm.
So we're going to prove something mathematically that a process has already started. So we're going to look at aberration with respect to time. And this was something new that I found, and I found it kind of interesting. In Dianetics, they have what's called a cyclic psychotic or cyclic interbulation. Now, what does that mean? A psychotic who becomes completely interbulated during certain periods of the day or the week or the month. Now, let me pose this question. Whenever we fall victim to whatever we fall victim to, have you ever noticed, now that we're bringing this up, that it happens at a particular time of the day? Or have you never even thought about it? Anyone?
I never thought about it.
Never thought about it, okay. He says that this type is generally running on a time factor contained in the engram. The incident may have occurred on the 25th of the month and continued to the 30th of every month, or the incident may have occurred at 10 o'clock at night, so that psychotic is only insane at 10 o'clock every night. I thought that was interesting. Because most of the times when I go off the deep end with regards to my dietary law, it's usually at night. Now, I don't know why that is, but until I read this, I never thought about it. That whenever those things take place, they usually take place at night.
Mhm.
Okay. And I really tried not to eat late at night because there's certain things that happen at night that if you eat right before you go to bed, what will happen is, depending on how you actually are laying, that food can actually come right back up and you'll experience what's called what's it called? I can't think of the medical term right now, but it's not acid reflux. There's something else, but it can actually come up and it'll wake you up out of a sleep and you'll be coughing because some of that acid can get down into your windpipe.
Mhm.
Has that ever happened to anyone? Well, you've experienced that before?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And it usually happens, and I think that's the reason why we were taught to eat between 4 and 6, because the food typically in the stomach takes 4 hours to digest. So by the time we go to bed at perhaps 9 or 10 o'clock, the majority of the food is actually gone. But if you eat late at night and then you lay down, there's a possibility you'll have that. And when it happens, it scares the hell out of you. Well, it scared the hell out of me. I'll just say that.
Mhm.
So then if aberration has a relationship with particular time, then the thought came to mind that maybe that's why we pray 5 times a day.
Mhm.
So if one can become aberrated with respect to time, could prayer be a method to remain in present time? It was just one of those things, one of those things that make you think. Because our prayer times could come because they're spaced at certain times, who knows? This could be the prescription for us. If we become aberrated with respect to time, then when we stop everything that we're doing and we make our salat, wouldn't that salat bring us into present time?
Yes.
And if we're in present time, typically you're not aberrated if you're in present time. So just by making our salat, keeping us in present time, and it helped me look at the Most High Elijah Muhammad. He said that if he were to, and I'm paraphrasing it, if he were to stop thinking on God, Allah, for a split second, he'd be a fool or he'd be insane or something. Have you ever heard that before?
Yes.
Okay. And then there's a verse in the Holy Quran that says, remember Allah when you're sitting, you're standing, and lying on your side.
Mhm.
I would think that if we're constantly thinking about Allah, then that keeps us in present time. So the question becomes, if we are missing our prayers for reasons other than those out of our control, could we be at that moment interbulated or aberrated?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What other reason could we give to willfully choose not to pray? I'd be the first to say I'm guilty of it. I could be in the midst of doing something, and when you're studying or you're reading or you're doing something and you're just in that flow, and then the alarm for prayer goes off, and then sometimes we say, okay, I'll do it as soon as I get finished, and then we get so caught up in this that we actually forget to make our salat. Even though our alarm went off, we chose to continue to do what we're doing instead of making our salat. Have we ever done that?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Matter of fact, it's funny that you say it like that, because I often find heading into prayer, I have to push myself. I have to actually jump into getting up and going into prayer. Like you have to put a force and an energy into it.
Okay, here's a
Fight
question.
against that
Oh,
interbulation.
go ahead. No, go ahead and finish your thought. Go ahead.
Oh, maybe just it's fighting that interbulation. It's fighting that that resistance.
Okay, so now here's the thought. Now, what are you fighting against?
Right.
Sleep God.
Because if you're saying you're trying to go in one direction, that's effort, then there has to be a counter effort, correct?
Yeah, that's what. Yeah.
So now let's look at this without getting too personal. I mean, I only push as far as you want to go. What is that counter effort that's keeping you from praying?
Sitting and finishing and doing what it is that I distracted myself with doing, like as you said, reading or anything, anything, everything.
So we have that counter. So we could look at this from the perspective of, I'm going to place in them a ruler that will cause mischief and shed blood. So we have this thing within ourselves that we have to fight. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Because we all go through it. I think in the past, I can honestly say in the past 5 years, I've made all 5 prayers. I could probably count on 2 hands. I'll be the first to admit it. You know. So when we do that willfully, did we just place something besides God?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
It's just one way of looking at things. Okay. And then this ayat popped in my head. And I say pop in my head, but you know, we have to give praise to Allah because he guides, he teaches man by the pen what man knew not. So this verse came to mind, and keep up prayer at the 2 ends of the day and in the first hours of night. Surely good deeds take away evil deeds. This is a reminder for the mindful. So then we could probably say that on one level, prayer is a method to keep us in present time. Could we say that?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's just again, remember, when you change the way you look at things, the things that what you look at begin to change, correct?
That is so true. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So then prayer could be a type of auditing. It could be a type of straight wire. Because then if you can read self-analysis, and in the book, L. Ron Hubbard says that this book is kind of like he's directing you through the straight wire, correct?
Yes.
If you've read self-analysis, he's telling you that he's guiding you through it. Well, L. Ron Hubbard is dead. That would imply if we're praying to a living God, then couldn't prayer be seen as a type of straight wire?
Yes.
If we say, I have been unjust to myself and I confess my faults. And if we were to slow down and really take our time, can we actually quickly lock scan all the faults that we've committed that day as we're making our salat? And what lock scanning is, when you do what's called lock scanning, you go over very rapidly certain things on your time track. And this is why another key is that we make our prayer to slow down and take our time. Okay. Slow down, take our time. Because then on one level, our prayer becomes a type of straight wire. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if we want to go clear, get clear, is Minister Farrakhan clear?
Absolutely.
Does he make his prayer? Did he go clear at the Church of Scientology? Or did he go clear based on the teachings?
Based on the teaching.
Okay, so it is possible to go clear without paying all that damn money. I mean, if I had the money, that's great, but I don't have it.
Right.
And again, it's nothing against the Church of Scientology, But the masses of our people, you know, the original man in North America who needs to go clear, we have to go after our people. The people in our brothers and sisters in the hood don't have that kind of finances. And that responsibility falls on us because the minister wanted us to get the training so we could deliver this tech or this prescription to our people without taxing their pockets. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yes.
Those who can afford it, all praise is due to Allah. So now here's interbulation based on the minister's going to explain something. And when the way he explains it, this is what interbulation is. He's gonna describe the meaning of poor in spirit. But when you look at how he explains this, and then if you read Dianetics, these two are actually saying the same thing. Okay, so we only I got one too many ones in here. This is timestamped at 9 minutes and 10 seconds. And it's going to go to 11 minutes and 15 seconds. So it's just a little over 2 minutes.
When we read right words with the right heart, seeking understanding of what we read, the spiritual energy that comes from that reading electrifies the cells and energizes the human spirit. So when Jesus said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit," man, that's something. How could a man be blessed and be poor in spirit? Now, you know, if you're poor materially, that's not a blessing. But to be poor in spirit is worse than being poor materially. Because spirit, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us, is the energy of life itself. And when you're poor in spirit, that means that the life force of your being is being strangled by another force that's limiting the energy of your being to accomplish what it is that God intends for you to accomplish. Sin strangles the human spirit. Violation of divine law strangles the human spirit. So most human beings have broken spirit because sin has kept the energy of their life force curtailed. That's why Jesus said, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." But you are not free even though you're readers if your mind is shackled by living a life that is contrary to God and contrary to the nature in which he created the human being.
So do we understand interbulated theta now?
Mhm. Yes, sir.
Okay. When we live other than our own selves, then it takes away from the strength of that life force that is within us, that really is us. And this allows us to manifest the reason and the purpose why we are here. Then the verse in the Holy Quran talked about swallowed him while he was blamable. So then the question comes up, could the engram interbulate the thetan while he is blamable? But then the question is, what does blamable mean? what exactly is blame? Now, in Dianetics, this is what L. Ron Hubbard says. This is actually pretty interesting. L. Ron Hubbard states that when an individual assigns cause to another entity, he delivers power to that entity. This assignment may be called blame, the arbitrary election of cause. When we assign blame for our failures, we are accepting that we are not cause, we are effect. To assign blame is to make an excuse, and an excuse is a justification for failure. So if we do something and we blame someone else, if we're saying that they are the cause of this, then what have we become? If there's only cause and effect, if they're cause, then we're what?
Effect.
We're effect, which means our environment has control over us. And if our environment has control over us, then we can't be God, can we?
Mm.
So we're always blaming other people, then we're making excuses. In Dianetics, an excuse is also called a service facsimile. In our language, it's called, again, deceptive intelligence. We will continually fail because we will never correct our behavior since it is always someone else's fault.
Mhm.
Do we have anyone that we know, friends or family, that anytime something happens, they always point the blame at other people?
Yes.
Okay. So if the devil made me do it, or someone else made me do it, then the other person is the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, and God of our universe. That's just another way of looking at it. The other person is God over us. Could we see that?
Mm-hmm.
And if they're the God over us, then who are we?
Mm.
Since our student enrollment only has 2 questions that deal with 2 people, if we're not the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet, and the God of the universe, then if we continue to blame other people, then wouldn't that make us a colored person or grafted?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't we be other than self?
Yes.
Okay. So in verse number 2 of Jonah, it says, Jonah speaking, and said, I cried by reason of mine affliction unto the Lord, and he heard me. Out of the belly of hell cried I, and thou heardest my voice. So then we see that it, in fact, wasn't a real fish that swallowed Jonah. He was in the belly of hell, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Okay. So the belly of the fish is the belly of hell. The word belly means a central place where something is most prevalent, concentrated, or deeply ingrained. So we're looking at this allegorically. Synonyms are core, heart, inner space, or soul. So then the question becomes, where exactly was Jonah?
Mm.
Was he really in the belly of a fish, or was he actually caught up in something in his own mind?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Dante's Inferno.
Dante's Inferno. Who said that?
Deborah.
Sister Deborah. That's an awesome book. There was a time when I was considering doing a Zoom meeting, and we would just start at canto number 1 in the Inferno, go through the purgatory, and then go to paradise, and line up all of that information in that book with Dianetics. Have you read all 3? Have you read all 3 parts of the book?
I haven't. I have gone on YouTube and Googled different ones. And what's the other? 1408, room 14.
With Samuel Jackson.
I believe so, yeah.
Yes, Samuel Jackson and I can't remember the white dude's name, but that movie is based on Dante's Inferno.
Yes, sir.
Also, another movie is also one of Robin Williams, What Dreams May Come.
What dreams may come.
Called What Dreams May Come. Robin Williams, Cuban Gooding Jr. is on that. I'm a big movie buff. I like watching movies and studying them. Those two movies are real good with Dante's Inferno, but excellent book. If you ever get the book, it's an excellent read. Because really that's part of our problem. We're going through our own inferno trying to get to paradise within us, within ourselves. Now it says that it was deeply ingrained. In Dianetics, that's called an occluded case. Have you ever heard that before? Or a heavy facsimile? Has anyone ever heard that before?
No, sir, I haven't.
Okay, a heavy facsimile or occluded case is a case that when you start to audit someone, it's hard to get any movement, because what happens is there's so much emotion on this case that the reactive mind fights tooth and nail to even keep you from getting anywhere close to it. That's called an occluded case. Cases are either wide open or occluded. A wide open case, you can start auditing and have the person crying within 5 to 10 minutes or whatnot. It's just easy to get in. You see what you got to see. You can get the charge. You're picking up your perceptics. Boom. Within an hour, 2 hours, or even less than that, person feels like a totally new person. An occluded case can take hours. Okay.
Brother, can I ask?
Sure.
You said the reactive mind. What are some of the things that the reactive mind will do in the case of an occluded situation?
Okay, that's a good question. You have what's called engrammic commands. And some of the basic engrammic commands are you have bouncers, you have deniers, you have groupers, you have misdirectors, and you have holders. And so what happens is you'll start posing questions to an individual that you have in session about a particular thing, and then they could start talking about something else that has nothing to do with what you're talking about. Okay. So this reactive mind, it's like you're playing chess with the reactive mind, and the reactive mind is trying to direct you away from, because you're getting too close now. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes.
Okay. You ever, children do this a lot. The child did something. You start asking the child questions and they start talking about other stuff that ain't got nothing to do with what you just asked. Okay. A child is like a demo kit for the reactive mind. If you want to study engrammic commands, ask your child some questions. When they've done something they know they had no business doing, and you'll see they'll try to misdirect you, or they'll try to bounce you to something else, or they'll deny. I wasn't, like the minister said, I didn't get no cookie, and you got crumbs all around your mouth. The reactive mind operates the same way. And when you're auditing someone, you have to be aware of these engrammic commands, and then you got to gently redirect them back and find a way to get past these tactics, basically, that the reactive mind is using to keep you from getting to that engram to release the charge from it. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely, absolutely. I like how you said to release the charge. So inwardly, then we're keeping a hold of these charges.
Yes. Now, do you know exactly what the charge is?
Yes, we went through it actually in the first part of Jonah, but right now I can't really formulate.
Okay, the charge, the word charge in Dianetics, when you look at this from a biochemical level, Anytime we've encountered stressful situations, we produce a hormone. It's a stress hormone.
Right.
And then what happens is over time, if you don't release that stress hormone, it builds up in your system over a prolonged period of time. And science has already shown, and the chemical is called adrenocorticotropic hormone. It's ACTH for short. If you look in the book Dianetics, you go on your index, you'll see ACTH back there. He makes reference to it in 2 places in Dianetics. But the chemical itself, if it stays in your system over a prolonged period of time, it starts to break down your immune system. So by the time that we're maybe 25, 30, 40, or even 50 years old, one of the reasons why our body begins to break down at that time is not necessarily because of old age. It's because we have 20, 30, or 40 years of stress that has built up that we have not released. And in order to get that chemical out of the body, it's discharged through tears. So tears of happiness and tears of grief have 2 different chemistries. They're not the same chemistry. Tears of happiness won't contain ACTH. Tears of grief have ACTH in them. And this is why any of you that ever had Dianetic auditing and you got rid of a lot of charge and you used up half the box of Kleenex to blow your nose because, you know, the tears actually come outwardly, but they also wash kind of like the inside. You felt lighter, you felt better after that. Have you ever had a real good cry and you felt better after that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. One of the reasons why you feel better is your body produces what's called endorphins, which is short for endogenous morphine. It's a naturally occurring opiate that your body produces that makes you feel good. And your body also got rid of all this negative charge. So when we say we carry around a lot of baggage, we do. And this is why women live longer typically than men. Why? Because women will cry. Men are told that real men don't cry. So what do? We withhold the tears. But we're actually shortening our life by doing that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, praise be to Allah. So the occluded case complains of illnesses ordinarily. And an inclusion itself is something hidden, and occlusion of memory is something forgotten that's not available to conscious recall. So sometimes what happens is you talk to people about Dianetics and you talk about them, you know, going back and trying to release certain things. And people have a tendency to think, well, hell, I don't need that because I can remember the stuff that happened to me. The stuff that we remember is not the stuff that's affecting us. The stuff from our past that's really having the effect on us is the stuff that we don't remember, but the charge is still there.
The unseen. Yes.
The unseen is there. The unseen is there. These things are hidden from view as if the brain has compartmentalized these things off to protect us, but really it hasn't protected us because we still have the effect of it. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So the things that affect us the most are the things that we can't remember. And I remember telling this to someone before. I said, I feel like, you ever see a movie where you deal with a haunted house and they play that crazy music and something's about to jump out. You just know it's about to happen, but you don't know which room it's in. I said, that's how my mind feels. I know there's something there from my childhood, but I can't quite put my finger on it, but I know something is there because something doesn't feel right. And I'm talking modern day right now. This is why I'm hoping to kind of get back to the org, get some auditing, because I know there's something that I carry from my childhood that I can't remember, but it still affects me. Okay. Matter of fact, I'll share this with this one part that I do remember. And I had asked my father this years ago before he passed away, because my whole life I had been wrestling with something. My whole life, I hated being alone. I didn't like being alone at all. And then when I started studying the Dianetics back in 2011, I spoke to my dad one time, and I said, I just have a question. I said, was there ever a time when I was left alone? And he didn't really want to answer me. And I said, Dad, I need to know, because there's something that's been haunting me for years. I mean, literally years, since I was a child. And I couldn't quite put my finger on it. He said, well, and he was kind of reluctant to tell me because he didn't want me to blame my mother. Now, I've always had a good relationship with my mother and my father. And I've gotten to a point now where I don't, even though there's things that happened in my childhood, I also realized that both of them had their own aberrations that they grew up with that they never were able to deal with. And this is in Dianetics, it's called contagion by aberration. We suffer from generational stuff that's been passed down to us. And if you're a Black man or Black woman in North America, we suffer from 400 years of this stuff. And he said sometimes he would work the overnight shift. And there were times when, let me back up and say this. The reason why I believe this was I had a memory of when I was little. And in the memory, I remember waking up on the couch, and I remember the Star Spangled Banner was playing on the TV. Now, this was back when TV actually went off at 12 o'clock. So some of the younger, y'all don't even know what this is about. TV actually went off at a certain time. And I remember I could look down and see my chubby little legs. I jumped down off the couch, I turned the TV off, and I went into my bedroom. And that always haunted me. I said, if there was ever someone home, why did they allow me as a child of that age? I was 4 years or younger. Why would I be in the house by myself? And then I asked my father, I said, Dad, I said, what happened? He says, there was times when I would be at work and your mother would leave you alone by yourself. And there were certain things my mother was doing at that time. And then I remember speaking to my godmother before she passed, and she confirmed it. She said, there'd be times I would bump into your mother and I would say, well, my birth name is Anthony. She said, where's Tony at? He's up at the house. She would come up to the house and I'd be in my crib. My diaper would be loaded. And she said, my face was damn near swollen because I was crying. I was in the house by myself.
Yeah.
So that's some of the stuff that I had to deal with. And then coming to Dianetics, it helped me to kind of understand it more so. But those are things I remember. There's some other things I can't remember that still haunted me. And I'm sure all of us here have something. We all have a story from our childhood, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So it says, he would have tarried in his belly till the day when they are raised. Now, tarry in Arabic, because now here's where we're going to actually do some word clearing. Tarried in Arabic is lalabitha, to keep doing something. And what does it mean to keep doing something? It means compulsion. Belly means to be hidden or secret. So to tarry in the belly could represent an illustration for an individual who's stuck or interpolated in an engram, which is your time track. And as a result, there is something hidden that is causing a compulsion or an obsession. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Does anyone here have a habit, a compulsion, or an obsession? Or did we used to have one?
Yes.
Okay, if we have one, 9 times out of 10, it's something that was either caused by enforced ARC, something was forced on us, or something we were not allowed to do, inhibited ARC. But can we see the correlation between self and Jonah and Dianetics and in the Holy Quran? Can we see all these things connecting?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is anyone going back on their time track and seeing some things?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I was looking at compulsion. I said, okay, where can I find compulsion in the Holy Quran? in one verse, Surah 24, verse 33, it says, and compel not your slave girls to prostitution when they desire to keep chase in order to seek the frail goods of this world's life. Now here's the key. And whoever compels them, then surely after their compulsion, Allah is forgiving and merciful. Now, the question that came to mind is based on this part, and whoever compels them. So then the thought comes to mind, could the whoever represent individuals, which would be valences on the inside? Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Can we say that whatever compulsions that we still have are something that was placed upon us by someone else in our childhood?
Yes.
Something
Yes.
to think about. Okay. So could the compulsions that we suffer from be rooted in ARC breaks coming from within? And now we're gonna dive deep, I guess you could say. We're gonna try to see if we can go a little deeper into our own minds. Again, if anyone has any cognitions that you wish to share, your cognitions can be the solution to someone else's problem. And I have no problem opening up the floor to allow anyone to share their cognitions, whatever you choose to share, because it could help another person that's in the room at this time. I looked at compel not your slave girls to prostitution, and automatically, what I've learned up to this point is when we clear these in Arabic, the Arabic gives a totally another way of looking. So I'm not necessarily making an interpretation. I'm just looking at the Arabic, and then one word in Arabic can have many, many different definitions. So I'm just kind of looking at the different definitions and see how they line up. So compulsion means to force, compel, or coerce. Okay, that part we understand. Slave girls, the Arabic is speaking about children, and the word itself could refer to both male or female. And then the prostitution in Arabic means to treat unjustly or to oppress. Okay. So then I looked at those three words and those different ways of looking at it. Then I asked myself the question, is there a connection with oppression, coercion, and children found in our lessons? Can we find any place in the lessons that teach about oppression, coercion, and children? Anyone?
English lesson C1.
There you go. English lesson number C1. Okay. It says, he likes the devil because the devil gives him nothing. Why does he like the devil? Because the devil put fear in him when he was a little boy. Why does he fear now since he's a big man? Because the devil taught him to eat the wrong food. So now what I want to do is I want to look at this like an equation. This is like mathematics. And we're going to use what's called the law of substitution. We're going to see if there's any terms in this that are similar to terms that we can find in Dianetics. Then we want to flip-flop the terms and then see if we can make this line up with the text. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the result of this is what? This makes him other than his own self. What is his own self? His own self is a righteous Muslim. So this part, so when we deal with allegories, we're taught that the rule of interpretation is some of its verses are decisive, they are the base of the book, and some are allegorical. So we're starting with what's decisive. If we start with the teachings, then that's decisive. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay. So what if we apply again? What if we apply the law of substitution to this lesson? We're going to substitute. We're going to flip-flop terms and then see if it takes on another life of its own. So then the question is, what is a devil that we like that gives us nothing?
Mhm.
Okay. So we go to question number 33. What is devil? Answer, a grafted man which is made weak or wicked, or any grafted live germ from original is devil. So that's what the lesson says, Lost Found Muslim lesson number 2. To graft means to implant surgically. Now, if we like the devil because he gives us nothing, could this represent an individual that is aberrated, which means they were made weak or wicked, that implanted something in us? Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In other words, the individuals from our timeline, our time track, our past, that were responsible for producing the engrams that we are now dealing with as grown men and grown women, they themselves would have had to have been aberrated in order to do what they did, correct?
Mhm. Yes, sir.
Okay. So in other words, they were made weak or wicked. And that's just because of living in this damn society, excuse my language, just by being in this society.
Mhm.
Our mothers and fathers were made weak and wicked. Because why? Because their parents, our grandparents, were made weak and wicked. Because our great grandparents were made weak and wicked. Because our great great grandparents. So this aberration has been going on ever since we started our sojourn here in North America, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So when we look at the law of substitution, he likes the devil because the devil gives him nothing. I said to myself, well, what if the devil represents an allied computation? Allied computation is a Dianetic term, and we're going to go into that in a minute. So here's the part where we start to do the substitution. So why does he like the devil? Because the devil put fear in him when he was a little boy. Put fear in him in Dianetics is called an implant. Has you ever see that before? Implant?
Yes.
I'll say it in our language, to stick a needle in the brain.
Mhm.
Okay. Same thing, just different way of saying it. Implant, needle in the brain is the same thing. Okay. To stick a needle in someone's brain is to put a thought in their mind. Remember the movie Inception?
Yes.
Okay. In the movie Inception, Leonardo DiCaprio's character was always upset based on his wife's suicide, correct?
Mhm.
Because he said he was the one that implanted the thought in her mind to begin with that caused her to kill herself.
Right.
So what did he do? He stuck a needle in her brain. He gave her an implant. Now, if you go back and watch Inception again with the Dianetic tech in your mind, you'll see Dianetics all throughout that movie. It's incredible. Why does he fear now since he's a big man? Because the devil taught him to eat the wrong food. So taught him to eat the wrong food could be a habit, a compulsion, or an addiction. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Yes, sir.
Okay. So now, yes, Sister Denise.
Okay. I'm with you because he likes the devil because he gives him nothing. Are you saying that the fear of him, he put fear in him when he was caused him to like him because he gives him nothing because he put that fear in it. Is that what you're saying? I'm trying to make sure I'm following you.
You can say that. You can say that. When you look at what's called, I think it's called Stockholm Syndrome. And that comment or that term is based on, I can't remember exactly where it happened, but individuals were held hostage. And then they began to sympathize with the hostage takers.
Okay.
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 So when you look at that, I can't remember the exact name of it, but the hostages took these people hostage. They put fear in them and then began to treat them in such a way that the hostages begin to side with those that took them hostage.
Mhm.
Okay. they were saying that something dealing with TikTok is affecting the children's thinking process or whatever because they think they could do all of that stuff and they end up hurting themselves or something like that. They were saying. Did you do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Mhm.
So you know, or like suicide is okay. And I don't know if that would even be part of that as well. It's just stopping them from implanting, you know, the thought in the children's head.
Mhm.
So I was thinking about that was a cognition that
Mhm.
came to me as you were talking about he likes him because he gives him up. Okay, you can go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. It's nothing to be sorry about. Your cognition is relevant.
Okay, because
Today-
I'm saying, why would I like somebody that don't give me nothing? You know, I'm just thinking, you know, unless you done put it, but you call this the Stockholm syndrome.
That's the medical term for a concept that could fall under.
Okay.
So you can look that up. You can get more in depth into it. But ask yourself the question: back when we were in the world, and we're not fully out of it right now yet either. So everything's for real. But back when we're in the world, I'll say prior to coming into the nation, didn't we love the world?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
What did it give us? It gave us nothing.
Hell.
It gave us nothing. It
That's
gave us nothing.
okay.
And in this modern time, I would say that the implant or the needle in the brain is being done through Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. That's the needle in the brain now.
I believe that. Yes.
That's the needle in the brain now. So the devil's using modern equipment too. So let's look at English lesson number C1, but we're going to substitute Dianetics into this equation. Could we say he likes the ally because the ally gives him nothing? And we're going to go over what an ally is. Matter of fact, let me say this now while we're here. Remember in the Dianetics video, the little boy was sick and he used his tummy ache because he didn't want to go to school. And eventually his mother kind of got hip to it, but then grandma came over. So he played sick for grandma, and grandma said, I'll be here as long as you're sick. Whenever you're sick, I'll be here. So grandma would, give him whatever he wanted. So I have to say my stomach is hurting, and then I can get whatever I want. You remember that video? The Dynetics video? Okay, so the grandmother becomes an ally, meaning someone who's there, who's a friend that will keep him sick. And then remember, as he grew up, he's an adult now, he's married, he tried to play that sick role with his wife, and he asked his wife if she could go make him a sandwich, and she looked at him like as if to say, if you don't get your butt out of this bed and go to work. So why was he doing that now as a grown man? Because he was taught to do that when he was a child. So many of us are either the ones that will play sick to get certain things, or we know people who will use their sickness to get things. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to get sympathy. And that's going to be something else that we're going to cover before we close it out. Sympathy. So why does he like the ally? Because the ally implanted a compulsion in him when he was a little boy. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Am I reaching for straws, or is this lining up?
No, it lines up, especially when we're told that the first 7 years of a child's development is, that's the most important, and that sets the trajectory for your whole life. So.
So why does he have a compulsion now in present time, since he's a big man? Because the ally implanted an ARC break when he was a child. So now can we see that we can use our lessons and line it up with Dianetics and kind of get an idea of how they both go together now to marry the two together?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the devil is the ally. And whoever takes the devil for a friend, forsaking Allah, he indeed suffers a manifest loss. That's Surah 4, verse 119. So when we take on the ally as a friend, don't we suffer loss?
Yeah.
Because then when you deal with an ally, you're dealing with what? You're dealing with a contra-survival engram. And I think it's also connected to a pro-survival engram. So the word friend, and I thought this was interesting, the Arabic word is walian, which means friend or helper. And if you look at the word wali, can you see the word ally in there, even though it's a different combination of letters, but it's kind of, you can kind of see it in there? Yes, no?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So does this devil correspond to an ally computation? What is an ally computation? An ally computation is an individual, an ally is an individual who cooperates with, supports, and helps another for a common object, a supporter, or a friend. It's someone who protects a person in a weak state and becomes a very strong influence over the person. The weaker the person, such as a child, even partakes the characteristics of the ally, so that one may find that a person who has, for instance, a bad leg, has it because a protector or ally in his youth had a bad leg. So an ally is just someone from our past that supported us in a weak state or an injury. And now, as a grown adult, we still use weaknesses or injuries to garner sympathy. Have you ever experienced that or seen anyone do that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, an ally computation is a calculation that anyone who is a friend can be kept a friend only by approximating the conditions wherein the friendship was realized. It is a computation that one can only be safe in the vicinity of certain people, and then one can only be in the vicinity of certain people by being sick or crazy or poor and generally disabled. So what happens is, if you compare this to what's called, I believe it's the Stockholm syndrome, is you have an individual that is in a certain vicinity where fear is used. And then because those that are the hostage holders, they show some type of sympathy or give the hostages something, they garner their support. And now, because the hostages feel safe, they now take it. All right, what was that?
I'm sorry. It's thundering and lightning here.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was. I thought, because I know it's about to storm here too, so. All right.
Brother Lukman, you hitting on some points, stirring up that thunder and lightning.
No, it ain't me. I don't make rain, hail, snow, and earthquake.
Yes, sir.
So this ally gives us sympathy. And that's what keeps us weak. There are some illnesses that we have are psychosomatic. We only have them because in having them, it garners sympathy. Well, what does L. Ron Hubbard say about sympathy? He says sympathy is a terrible thing, but it is considered to be a very valuable thing. He says the survival value of sympathy is this: when an individual is hurt or immobilized, he cannot fend for himself. He must count on another or others to care for him. His bid for such care is the enlistment of the sympathy of others. This is practical. If men weren't sympathetic, none of us would be alive. So for example, you have an individual who's in the car, and let's say they have a wheelchair, but they still drive. And let's say they're in the process of trying to get back in the car so that they can go back home, but they have to go through the hassle of folding up the wheelchair, putting the wheelchair in, and then they might say, excuse me, can you give me a hand? Okay, so that's not That's not negative sympathy. That's legitimate. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, if you have a legitimate weakness or legitimate illness, there's nothing wrong with that. But the sympathy we're talking about is called non-survival value of sympathy. Is this: an individual fails in some activity, he then considers himself incapable of surviving by himself. And so when you have a grown individual that's asking for certain things, and you're looking at this person like, you're not disabled, you look fully able to go work a job. Why don't you go and get a job to do the things you need to do? What has happened is they have failed so many times in their life that they themselves feel as though they are not capable to do it anymore. Go ahead, Sister Denise.
So I'm trying to see between sympathy and blamable. Okay. Does the sympathy makes, he then considers himself incapable of surviving? Is it because, let me see, because of the blamable, so he's not making the other person the cause, and he's the effect of sympathy, is he? Is he making them?
Sympathy is something that's coming into us.
Okay,
Blamable is something that's going out to someone else.
okay, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Okay, I got it.
So in Dianetics, we would say sympathy is an inflow and blamability is an outflow.
Okay.
And I was always taught that when you point at someone else, there's three fingers pointing back at you.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So even though he isn't stuck, he isn't sick. Actually, he makes a bid for sympathy. So some individuals fake illness or fake injury or fake inability in order to garner sympathy. So does that make sense up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
We're all good?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Very, very good.
The allied computation and emotion. Thus, we come to the allied computation. This will be the chief and number one struggle of the auditor, the thing which will most elusively resist him, the thing which lies down close to the core of a person. The allied computation is severe enough that an auditor once said that a man is not victimized by his enemies, he is murdered by his friends. And grammatically speaking, that is quite true. Now, when I read this, when we look at our time track, have the majority of the individuals that cause us injury, have they been strangers or have they been friends and family?
Friends and family.
Friends and family, okay? And that's the number one thing we might deal with when we're actually auditing individuals. He says, so some of the main sources of pain are from those that were considered friends and family. Now, how do we get out? So now we're about to land this plane. How do we get out of the fish? So in Jonah, it says, I was supposed to say, instead, not sad, but instead, I cried by reason of mine affliction unto the Lord, and he heard me out of the belly of hell, cried I, and thou heardest my voice. That's Jonah from the Bible. Holy Quran, it says this, but had he, I guess I kind of I was missing these things, I was typing so fast. Had he not been of those who glorify us, he would have tarried in his belly to the day when they are raised. So in both of these, in Jonah from the Bible, he's saying that he cried out and God heard his voice. In the Holy Quran is saying, and had he not been those who glorified us, he would have been. So the difference between those that are aberrated and remain aberrated versus those who was aberrated and get their senses back represents those who believe and disbelieve. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the minister gave us instructions to learn this tech. The minister said in the divine destruction of America, can she avert it? He said grief was going to be a tool that Allah was going to use in the judgment. So if grief was going to be a tool that's used, and when we look at Surah 29, no, not Surah 29, I think it's Surah 11 where it says the shock of the hour. Y'all with me?
Yes, sir.
The shock of the hour is a grievous thing. And then it gives a description of how people would be acting during that time period. In Arabic, the word shock is zilzala. And when you clear the word zilzala, it means grief. So the shock of the hour is the grief of the hour. And it's a tool that's going to be used during the judgment. Question is, when would the judgment begin? That's a good question, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Hopefully we have an answer before we wrap it up tonight. But when they are raised, until the day they are raised, the word raised in Arabic is ba'atha, which means to send out, to dispatch, or to resurrect. So in other words, he would be in the belly or in his reactive mind until the day when they are raised, the day when they are sent out in order to resurrect. So there's a judgment that takes place where people are going to be aberrated, and then some people are going to be sent out. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
You remember what Savior's Day 2011 was called? Wasn't it, he will send out, or send saviors?
Yes.
That was 2011, right? Y'all with me?
Could that, yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Oh, could that also be when you said we'll be in the belly until these things are sent out? Could that also have to do with the interbulation? Like we'll be stuck in this part of ourselves until the stuff within us is risen up and gotten out?
Wait till you see where we go with that one. But you're right on the mark, Sister Aja. Right on the mark.
Okay.
Wait till you see how this comes together. So what is our affliction? So did Allah hear our affliction? So now we're putting ourselves in the place of Jonah. Jonah said, you heard from my, so did God hear our affliction? Were we not interbulated? Were we not aberrated? Okay. Did we receive an answer to get us out of the belly of hell? If you're on this call and you've been studying Dianetics, you've answered the call, basically. Can any of us say that we are better off now than we were before since we listened to the minister's instructions?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Okay. Now we might not have completed the Dianetics, but we've done some part of the tech to help change our mindset. Could we agree on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when is the day where it says we will be raised? And remember, raised means to send out. Well, we know the minister's lecture 2011 was he will send out saviors.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now watch where we go with this one. And our Savior has arrived. And I've mentioned this before. Pages 81 and pages 82. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad says that these are the days of the Son of Man and the days of the removal of the old world of evil, filth, and unrighteousness. These are the days of setting up a clean world under the guidance of the original people, the Black nation. So a process has to take place to prepare the new rulers for the rulership. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Okay. You will be caused to grow into a new person and the nature will be different. It will be the nature of righteousness, and then we cannot sin. In that kind of rebirth, it will be impossible for us to sin. So are you telling us that sin is going to be removed from us during a certain time period? Based on what the Most High Elijah Muhammad is saying, yes, emphatically yes. He talks about on these pages a 20-year period that's going to take place. Who is not familiar with this? Are we all familiar with this 20-year period?
Oh, can you say what it is? I
Oh,
mean,
of course. I have to, because we have to know.
Yes.
He says, after the removal of this world, after 20 years, you will not be able to follow and do that which you are now following and doing in this world today. He says, within 20 years, the thought of this world will vanish from your mind. You will not even be able to remember what this world looked like or what went on in it. Now, can you imagine being in a place and thinking about, I can't remember North America? I can't remember the stuff I went through?
This is what the messenger said in Our Savior Has Arrived.
This is Our Savior Has Arrived. Yes, ma'am. Page 81 to page 82. You can read it for yourself. This is straight from the book. The things of this world at a certain time in this 20-year period is going to be erased and we're not going to remember it. So all the hell we are going through is going to be taken from us if we are so blessed to complete the process. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. He says, your mind will be clean. He said, ask the wise scholars and scientists, they will agree with me. Well, how do you make a mind clean? And what does clean mean? So we clear the term. We do word clean. What does clean mean? Clean means to be free from dirt or pollution, free from growth of that which hinders, free from moral corruption or sinister connections of any kind. Doesn't it sound like something that's going to happen dianetically? If it's having to do with our mind?
Yes.
Free from offensive treatment of sexual objects and from the use of obscenity. Isn't that what Dianetics does? Ceremonial or spiritually pure. So this is all describing the text, isn't it? Is it not?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It means beyond the reach of the opponent. Well, that kind of reminds me that we could put the Caucasian around our finger and we wouldn't even know he's there unless we looked at him. We're no longer affected by the world that he has made, because we're what? We're free from the impurities and the filth and the indecency of his world. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
But the word clean also means relatively free from error or blemish or clear. Now, this is straight from Merriam-Webster dictionary. Clean means clear. So when the Most High Elijah Muhammad said that your mind will be made clean, it's the same as saying that our mind will be made clear, since these words are synonymous. Would that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So a new people are going to be produced, and you can read this from the Bible as well as the Holy Quran. So from the Bible standpoint, it says, and I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on the Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his father's name written in their foreheads. These are they which are not defiled with women, for they are virgins. These are they which follow the Lamb whithersoever he goeth. Now, when I look at this verse from the Bible, this is Revelation chapter 14. If we were to say that this 144,000 are standing with the Lamb, and the Lamb represents the Messiah, and the Messiah is the minister, don't we have his father's name written in our foreheads? Because we don't have the name Farrakhan, correct?
Right.
But we have the name Muhammad. And wasn't that the name of his father?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It says they were redeemed from among men, being the first fruits unto God and to the Lamb. Does that make sense?
Mm.
So you have a new people that are going to be singing a new song, basically. And in their mouth was no guile, for they are without fault before the throne of God. Wow, that thunder hit right at the right moment, didn't it?
That's you, Brother LaPlante.
It ain't got nothing, it ain't got nothing to do with me. It was a good sound effect, though, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
Now watch this. The purified ones, as found in the Holy Quran. It says, and most of the ancients surely went astray before them. And indeed, we sent among them warners. Now, who are these warners? Are these the same people that were sent? We sent warners. Then see what was the end of those warned, except the servants of Allah, the purified ones. So the Holy Quran talks about these purified ones. And then in another verse, it says, Surah 38, verse 79 to 83, it says, he said, my Lord, respite me to the day that they are raised. He said, surely thou art of the respited ones, till the day of the time made known. He said, then by thy might, I will surely lead them all astray, except thy servants from among them, the purified ones. Now, what is the word purified in Arabic? It means to be redeemed. The word is actually kalasa, to attain salvation, to be purified, or to be clear. Now, is that a coincidence? So on the right of the screen, this is a shot from an actual Arabic dictionary. And you'll see it says kalas, which is the root word for purified ones from Arabic, to become free, to be liberated, to be, here it says, to be cleared, to be redeemed, be delivered. And then down here it says to clear, to purify, to purge. So have we found another marriage between the Holy Quran and Dianetics?
Mhm.
All right.
And the Bible.
And the Bible now.
And the Bible.
So
Yes.
now the question is, when will the 20 years begin? Some of you may have already seen this before. Sister Aja, you may not have seen this before. Do you know when the 20 years will begin?
The 20 years, was that supposed to take place after the devil has been, everything's been cleared away? Is that some sort of maybe a rapture era? Or...
No. Well, you haven't seen this before yet, so
Okay.
I'll share this with you. Our Savior has arrived. Again, these are the exact words of the Most High Elijah Muhammad. The days of Allah, God, mean years of Allah, God, and not a 24-hour day. It means years. These days are years of judgment. Now here it is. He says these days or years of judgment. So these are 20 years of judgment. According to the Bible and the Holy Quran, will not run over 20 years. Okay, so we can say, based on what the Most High Elijah Muhammad said, we are talking about the judgment, and we're talking about a 20-year period, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And it says, according to the scientists of Islam, the teachings of the Holy Quran, which are to be understood, the judgment is to take place between 1380 to 1400 years after the death of Muhammad, son of Abdullah. So now we can use some mathematics to determine the 20-year period, because we have in Dianetics, we have what's called an anchor point. So we have something definitive. We have mathematics. So when you look at 1380 to 1400 years after the death of Muhammad, if Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, passed in 632 AD, then 1380 plus 632 equals 2012, correct?
Mhm.
So that means this particular part of judgment would start in 2012 and it would end in 2032.
Mhm.
Now we have this time frame of 2012 and 2032. Was there a process that started at that point in time which involved the cleaning of the mind and the removing of sin? What process started with the nation in 2012?
The Dianetics.
The Dianetics.
Hmm.
Till the day of the time made known. Now, when we say no man knows the hour, we don't know when this whole thing will fall. So I'm not talking about that one. But this 20-year period, just based on the math that the Most High Elijah Muhammad gives us and our Savior has arrived, we can definitively look at this 20-year period and we can line it up with a process that started in 2012. Significance of 2012 and being sent forth. In the Final Call newspaper, the article was titled "Nation Adopts New Technology to Serve the Black Nation." That was April of 2011. During his recent Savior's Day address titled "God Will Send Saviors," Minister Farrakhan said he found this modern tool called auditing at the Church of Scientology. Auditing means to listen and compute, and it helps people return to painful memories that are hidden in their minds or that they have denied exist in their lives. This is taken directly from the Final Call newspaper. Now look what happened in 2012. A weekend of healing at Mosque Mariam, July 5th, 2012. The Nation of Islam opened the doors of its international headquarters to the public for a weekend of healing through its life repair seminar on June 29th and 30th. So can we say that this process started in 2012?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in summary, can we agree that there's ARC between the Bible, the Holy Quran, and Dianetics?
Mhm. Yes, sir.
So that will be the end of part 2. God willing, next week we'll do a part 3 if there is going to be a part 3. And we'll see if we can link up more of the Holy Quran to the Bible, to the lessons. And the goal is to get more and more of the believers involved in the tech, because a time is coming. The world is going to be dependent upon some individuals that are level-headed, that have some sense of sanity left to help de-aberrate everyone else. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or clear? De-aberrate, clear is the same thing. Does anyone have any comments, any questions, any thoughts, any concerns, any suggestions, or any corrections?
I did have a thought.
Okay.
I remember the sister before was asking why Jonah. And it was said many times that this is the time, that the only sign of these times would be Jonah. Jonah would be the sign for what's happening now. So I don't think it's a coincidence that that hit you in such a way and that you developed all of this from that. Jonah is what everyone, like you said, everyone is in that position right now and going through.
Mm-hmm.
We're about to be birthed, and yeah,
And
that's why.
birth is painful, and that's why I can't speak for all of you, but I'm going through in my own personal life right now the hardest time of my life right now. And if I did not have the tech, then you'd probably be reading about me or hearing about me on the news.
Brother, you said that the other day at the seed. Yeah, okay.
Oh yeah, I'm going through I would have to say I'm going through the most painfully traumatic time of my life right now. But to see me, you would not know it.
Mhm.
Do you, in that moment or in this time of your life, do you feel not only the birth of the pain that you're going through and the trauma, but do you also feel like on the horizon, do you feel that the sun of a brand new world, like showering down on your head, can you feel like the possibility of what's
Yes,
on the other side of all this? Oh, beautiful.
yes, I feel the possibility, you know, but there's some days when you know, I have to be honest. There's some days when I'm under such a tremendous strain that I don't think I'm going to make it. This is why I do what I do with the Zoom meetings. And I said this once before. I said, this is my prescription. You know, when I sacrifice my time to do this with the help of Allah, this is one of the ways that I can help me. Because when I'm going through all these Scientology books and the Holy Quran, not only am I finding that which I want to share, but I'm finding that which I need. I'm self-medicating through these PowerPoints, I guess you could say. I'm trying to overdose on my own drug. But behind all this is a tremendous amount of, oh my God, when Allah says that he tries us at least once a year severely, I know that. I understand it. I am dead set in it. Go ahead, Sister Denise. Are you done, Sister Aja?
Oh no, well, for now, yes, I can always come back to another point. Thank you, sir.
No, go ahead. Go do your point before you lose it.
Oh, another point was the like. I know the sister was asking, how can I like, nothing? How can I like someone that gives me nothing? And what popped in my head was fair seeming. I think we have to kind of take a look at if there's the definition of like, because it's not necessarily something that we enjoy, but it's something that seems fair. It seems like it's okay. Like when grandma gives you that attention because you say you're sick. That seems like that's a sweet thing, but you don't know exactly what you're getting yourself into psychologically and mentally and emotionally. So that would be interesting.
Oh, go ahead and finish.
Oh, I was gonna say that would be interesting to look into.
I'll give you another example. There's sometimes when I'm at work, and I'll be sitting around and you got other guys sitting at the table and they're talking about different sports teams and basketball teams and football teams and statistics and who scored the most points and all this stuff. And in my mind, I'm thinking, you have all this information in your head, but how can you utilize that to change your condition? You love the devil. Why? Because he gives you nothing. I'm a very big video game player. I love video games because, I like to take I take a study break. I like playing video games. And sometimes I'm in the video games and you can communicate with other people and you hear people bragging about, oh yeah, I just got this high score and oh yeah, I'm better than you are and I'm better than that and this, and I got all this. In my mind, I'm thinking, but once you take the game off, how can you use that to change your condition? You love the devil because he gives you nothing. We put our effort in the devil's world, and right now we're going through the study of education. We spend all this money for a certificate. And then what's the value of that piece of paper? We love the devil because he gives us nothing. So you can use that in many different ways. But in other words, the devil really does not have anything to give us, but we still love his world. And that's just, you can look at it from just many, many different perspectives. Sister Denise, your hand is up.
Yes, sir. It's a scripture in the Bible that said we don't know what we will be like, but we will be like him. And I thought about that as you were talking about, his name is, being in our forehead, because the question was about, do we see what has happened to Minister Farrakhan from that time, and have we seen anything after that time, after the Million Man March? What has or what has transpired since he said that he had that experience on the plane. And then she asked to reread part A of Who is God. And as I was dissecting it, because we don't equate being Mark talked about with that scripture that said, blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you. I wasn't feeling that one right there, because I'm
Mhm.
like, I mean, how you gonna be blessed when people doing all that stuff to you? You know, but as he went to purifying us, you know, a lot brings out of us what's in us, and sometimes the pressure, you know, pressure makes diamond. And you know, when I read that, it's like, what you said last week, if you change your thinking about something, then your thinking will change, or something like that. You said.
When you change the way you look at things, the things at which you look at change.
Right. So sometimes I think I not deceptive intelligent, but you know, when you look at it differently, I don't know, it pulls you out of of a state. To me, it seems like it just pulls you out of, oh, woe is me, or he's gonna get bad before it's you know. But these are things that's helping to resurrect stuff out of us. When I dissect the study guide, you know, I couldn't read it fast, I had to take it slow. I said, oh my goodness, you know, what have I got myself into? But but you know, we say these things, you know, I want to be close to Allah, you know, all my prayers, sacrifice, you know, we say all this.
Yeah, sounds
And not
good.
knowing yeah, oh, it sounds real good, but something's about to come behind it, you know. You really? Do you really? You know?
Do men think on they'll be left alone on saying they believe and will not be tried?
Exactly. And you think people just gonna leave you alone for real, and not say anything to you, not, you know? And I wonder why the minister thinks he's not bothered. I said, man, if I can get to that point where,
Yes, ma'am.
you know, it's like, all right, okay. Were you not upset? No. I mean, why should I be? But the thought that this new world, I mean, it's like you don't have to change and submerge yourself in the Satan world. You know, come out of her. And now you come out of her mind, where you said the messenger said you won't even think about this world. It's like an unraveling. And the people been used to filth and all that kind of stuff, and then to not to, you know, where what America, well, who's that? I mean, what's that? You know, so that's what I was thinking about. Those are my cognitions as you was going on about not heaven. Heaven must be like this, where we, you know, our minds are changed. And I think he said it won't be that the world would change. He said it would be the thinking in the people that will change the world, because that's the thought process, and that's why the mind of God has to come forth. So that's all I got. Thank you, beloved.
No, that's fine. And a matter of fact, that quote that you asked about, I'll give you an example how it works. Let's say you're driving and you're on the highway, and in your rearview mirror, you see someone weaving out of traffic, cutting people off, driving really erratic, disrespectful. They get up to where you are, they cut you off, they almost doggone run you off the road, and then they keep flying past you, and you can see them weaving in and out of traffic ahead of you. How does that make you feel when they almost cut you off and you see them driving the way they're driving? How does that make you feel? Do you get angry at that?
Yeah, sound like road rage to me.
Okay. Now watch this. So now you're angry, and that person is no longer there. They're flying down the road. They're gone. You're angry now. Anger is a chemical. So now you're carrying around these stress chemicals. So you've let them affect you, and they're no longer here. Now, watch this. Let's say you are in a certain location and you get a call that someone in your family has been injured and you have to hurry up and get to the hospital. And let's say you got a 5 or 10 mile trip to get down the highway from where you are to the hospital. How would you be driving? Would you be weaving in and out of traffic, or would you be driving the speed limit and driving, perfectly the speed limit and obeying all, or would you be driving in a hurry to get from point A to point B? How would you drive? You still there?
Yes, sir. The point is, I guess you don't know. You don't know.
Right. So when that happens to me and I see a person driving like that, I say to myself, they must have an emergency.
Mhm.
So by changing the way I look at that, it changed the way that thing looks like. What have I just saved myself from just by changing my perception? I'm not stressed out about it.
Exactly.
And then I can also say, they can go and have their accident someplace else. If that's their intention, they can have their accident someplace else. But what I try to do is say, they must have an emergency. I hope everything works out. Now I don't carry that anger with me. I'm not carrying that stress around with me.
And
Now, does it always work? Not with everything,
no, I don't.
because I'll cuss someone out in a heartbeat. I tell people, I'm not clear yet. I'm not clear. I'm better than I used to be. Can you picture Bro Lukman following someone to a red light, getting out the car and walking up to their car and cuss them out in their car? Yeah, I've done that many times.
Woo.
That was back in my younger days. That was before I was Bro Lukman. I was another person back then.
Yes,
But
sir.
I say that to say, it helps me to understand more how the minister can be so calm.
Yes.
Because I say that to myself. I say, if I could just get that. In the face of everything going on, he has when I listen to him speak, it's almost like a soothing voice.
Yes.
And I desire to have that peace of mind, knowing that no matter what happens, everything happens by Allah's active or his permissive will. So why stress it? There's an old Buddhist saying, if you have the ability to change a thing, then there's no need to worry about it. If you don't have the ability to change a thing, then why worry about it?
Really, because Ishmael was talking about, and he put the finger up, and the man put the finger up, and he put it back. But he was saying what could have happened, and so someone almost hit us, and the horn was blown. I said, "Don't blow that horn." It was like, why not? They almost doesn't count.
And that horn ain't gonna change nothing.
Right. And I said, well, if they get out the car, I would say, oh, please forgive us. We sorry. Even though they might have caused the accident or almost caused it. But if they stopped and road rage, please forgive. We're so sorry. Oh, I don't know, it was on our mind. It's definitely not gonna be your fault. You know, the person that did it. So you leave room for improvement, or if the person wants to apologize, something like that, proper way of handling people. You know, you make the correction seem easy to be corrected. That Elijah Muhammad, he knew we won't have trouble. So he created that proper ways of handling people. We knew we were going to have trouble. Yes, sir.
And that's in our rules of behavior. It tells us, do not provoke anyone. Now, the minister said a day will come when someone will spit in your face and you have to take it. I know I am nowhere near that right now. I know I'm not. I'm not going to pass that test. I'm not going to pass that test. Those are fighting words. You spit in my face, it's on and popping now, player. We doing this now. But I pray to get to that point where I can have that same calm demeanor. But that's when you are totally in the bosom of Allah and you know that he's in control of all things. And that's where we need to be. That's what's going to give us safely across to the other side.
Yes, sir.
So, and we can't do that unless we get rid of these aberrations, these valences, these locks, these key-ins. Once we get rid of that, then we have a better shot of getting through this fiery period we're going to be going through.
Ooh, brother, I love how you, okay. So when you said you don't know if you could be the kind of person that would be calm in the face of that.
Not yet. I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet.
I love how we're not truly asked. I mean, if we think about it, we're not truly asked to be any of that. We're just asked to seek refuge in Allah.
And
If
trust
we
me,
can just do that, yes, sir.
I will be calling on Allah. If someone gets that close to do that to me, I will be calling on him because I already know it's time to be locked up.
On that day, Allah will take over, brother.
Yeah, I hope
You
so.
won't have to worry about that.
Because I know what I'm going to do. I'm not clear yet. I haven't gotten there yet.
It doesn't matter. The spirit will block you from any reaction.
I pray Allah that you are correct.
Nicely said, brother Eric. Nice to see you, sir.
Thank you, brother Eric.
Nice to see you too.
I pray Allah because I'm telling you, I have a very bad temper.
Well, you're not the only one. We were always Negro. Right?
I was made for this time period, though. I believe I'm everything's for real. So like my sister always says, don't let the smooth taste fool you.
Go ahead.
So, all right, family, I've babbled long enough. I appreciate your time and your attention. Does anyone have any closing remarks or questions, comments, suggestions before we close it out? Yes, ma'am, Sister Ania.
Yes, sir. When you asked for suggestions, when we mentioned earlier that was mentioned about Dante's Inferno, that would be a good topic to, go through, like you've doing this 2 or 3 week series, and to really go through Dante's Inferno step by step, break it down the way you're doing with, the Dianetics and the Bible. I'd like to see that.
Okay, I've actually done part of that already. I just haven't formalized it into a PowerPoint, but I've gone through that, and it lines up wonderfully with the tech. When you understand that book is just full of allegories, metaphors. I mean, it's just a wonderful, incredible book. And the craziest thing about it is it was written in the 15th century? I think it was. Yeah, the 15th century that book was written. So at a point in time, Sister Ania, inshallah, we will do that. We'll introduce that topic. The prep or the homework will be to read a certain number of chapters, and then we will come together and see how it lines up allegorically to the tech. Because when you go through that book, at least this is what I experienced, as I read through that book, I became the individual that was walking through the inferno, and I began to see people that were in my own life in the same light that Dante saw that he was being explained, these people that were in the inferno. I began to see my whole life in that light, and then understanding inferno, coming to the nation would be like the purgatory, because we're purging ourselves of certain behaviors. And then God willing, we get across the river on the back of the minister, and we'll get to that paradise. And that's how the book is laid out. It's a perfect indication of where we are right now. So God willing, we'll do that in the near future.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Anyone else?
All right, can I?
Yes, sir. You got the floor, brother.
Bismillah. Well done, big brother. And the only thing I could add to it is the tone scale that Elvan Hubbard teach. And if you take that tone scale and go to what the minister taught us in study guide number 18, rise above emotion into the thinking of God. And in that lecture, it was a lecture, first of all. Yes. He told us that love is not an emotion. So, and if you look on the tone scale, you will not find the word love there either. Okay, which means that when you get to the point we call the 40.0, which is, I always have a problem with that word. Help me.
I know 27 is serene.
No, for serenity, that's it, that's the word.
Okay.
That's 40.0.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the highest you can go on that tone scale. Why is that? Because when you reach the point of serenity, that in itself, you are in total control of your emotion. So there is nobody who can disturb you. In fact, once you reach the 4.0, you're already in control of your emotion, right? And when the higher you go now, you are really living the life of a God, really. But you are not yet that. It's only when you pass that point of serenity, you enter into the reality of God, which is love. Because we say God is love. So if God is love, love also is God. So now when you can find love in you, I can find love in me. So I can say now, I am living the life of a God. So, and love is a creative force, we say. And that creative force is the one that is really guiding us to do all things. And it allows us also to make all things new, because whenever you open your mouth, your word become a magnet. What makes us so much attracted to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan? He only give you the words, and the word come out with love and is guiding us into a path. And the same way the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad did, and this is exactly what we are. I was following you very attentively, and you did an excellent job.
All praise is due to Allah. I appreciate that. I'm thankful to Allah for it. And I pray Allah that our tone level is at a point that's higher than it was when we came on the call. Also, public service announcement from the fire officer. Please replace your batteries in your smoke detectors. Someone's detector's going off.
I think I just heard mine. That's mine.
Okay.
So I got to change that.
Wow. But you got sensitive ears.
It just comes with the job.
Training.
Yeah.
It comes with the job. And that's a very, very serious thing. It's just chirping. Make sure those batteries are in place, because we just had a fatality here in the city where I'm at a couple of weeks ago, and it just so happened their smoke detectors weren't working.
Thank you, brother.
On the Zoom calls, I hear that going off. It's like raking your nails down the chalkboard. Place those batteries in your smoke detectors.
Right.
All right, dear family. Again, we held this on Saturday night because I won't be able to do it Sunday night. And then God willing, we will be back together again Wednesday morning. We're going to be doing some more mathematics and Dianetics. I have a topic that's brewing in my mind, so I pray Allah will allow me to bring it out into the light. But inshallah, we'll see each other again on Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. If you have any ideas for future topics, just send me an email of something you might be interested in, and I'll be more than happy to look at that subject and see if we can turn it into a presentation and link it in with the tech and with the Holy Quran and the Supreme Wisdom. So with that being said, I will go ahead and dismiss myself, thanking the believers for your time and your patience. And
By the way,
and go ahead, Brother Eric.
I had a program just before yours, a Zoom, and I approached that same subject that you were on, that you find in page 81 and 82.
Mhm.
And these are the exact same numbers I gave.
Oh,
I
really?
said, "Oh, Allah wanted to make something known."
Mhm.
That's it.
Now, what meeting did you have right before this one?
It's called the Voice of the Islands. So this is something that Minister Sharif had put me on.
Oh, okay.
He wanted me to connect with the Caribbean and to make sure that all Blacks can come together. So at that point, I had a few helpers, but I have not seen them for the last 3 weeks. So I'm carrying it on by myself. So
Yeah, well, Allah says we have to depend on Allah and ourselves, and when it boils down to it, that's the only thing that's guaranteed right there, brother.
sir,
Allah and self. So
indeed.
keep doing what you're doing.
So next time I'll send you the link if you want to check it out. That will be fine.
All right, yes, sir.
All right.
All right, family, let's go ahead and close it out in prayer. Attention prayer. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. All praise is due to Allah, Lord of the worlds, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. For the day of judgment in which we now live, the alone do we serve, and aid do we seek. Please, Allah, guide us on the straight path, the path upon whom thou hast bestowed favors, not the path upon whom thy wrath is brought down, nor those who go astray for hearing thy teaching. Ameen.
Amen.
Assalamu
Don't forget to send me mine.
alaikum, family.
Alaikum salam.
Walaikum salam. Thank you so much, brother.
Thank you, family.
Send me a copy, big
Walaikum
brother.
salam.
Wa alaikum salam, sir.